The steel four-pole felt cold and heavy in his hand, a makeshift weapon in the sterile, silent hospital ward. Across the room, Matthew's face was a thunderous mask of fury, his body tensed like a cornered animal. And between them stood me, the reason for this explosive confrontation. My protector, a boy I'd known for barely a week, was ready to commit an act of violence for my sake, while the boy I had loved for a year looked at me as if I were something to be scraped off his shoe. But to understand how a quiet hospital room became a battlefield, how affection curdled into this violent hatred, we have to rewind. Back to the place where it all began to shatter. The basketball court. The shrill blast of the halftime whistle sliced through the air, and the roar of the crowd faded into a dull hum in my ears. My focus was singular, locked on the tall figure drenched in sweat at the center of the court. Matthew. In my hand, I clutched a cup of iced passion fruit juice, the condensation cold against my nervous palm. It was his favorite. I had timed it perfectly, ready to be the one to greet him, to offer a moment of relief. But I was too late. My heart plunged as I saw a smaller, more delicate figure dart past the other players, a bottle of water held out like a trophy. My younger sister, Sophia. She reached him, her face beaming with adoration. Matthew's tired expression melted into a soft, indulgent smile. A smile I had so rarely been the recipient of. He took the water, but instead of drinking, he leaned in, his knuckles brushing against her skin, and playfully pressed the icy bottle to her flushed cheek. "Is that cool?" he murmured, his voice a low rumble that carried even over the distance. Sophia giggled, a sound like tiny bells. "Yes, but that's for you. You must be exhausted. Keeping you from melting is more important," he replied, his eyes crinkling at the corners. The casual intimacy of the gesture, the easy affection in his voice, it was a performance of a love so public, so effortless, that it felt like a deliberate knife in my gut. Sophia's face bloomed a deeper shade of crimson. As she shyly turned her head, her gaze landed on me, standing frozen just a few feet away. Her smile tightened for a fraction of a second before widening again. She grabbed Matthew's hand, a possessive little tug, and pulled him towards me. "Matthew, this is my older brother, Roman," she announced, her voice saccharine sweet. "Brother, this is my boyfriend, Matthew." Our eyes met over her head. A shadow passed over Matthew's features, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. His gaze on me was not one of recognition, but of ice cold. The message was brutally clear. Say nothing. Expose nothing. A wave of profound powerlessness washed over me, so heavy it felt difficult to breathe. I forced a brittle smile onto my face. "Hello," I managed, the word feeling like ash in my mouth. He gave a curt, dismissive nod, his attitude one of complete and utter indifference. It was then that Sophia's eyes fell to the cup in my hand. "Oh, brother?" she chirped, her head tilting in feigned confusion. "Aren't you allergic to passion fruit? Who's that drink for?" My fingers tightened around the plastic cup, the chill seeping into my bones. My gaze flickered to Matthew, a desperate, subconscious plea. He glanced at the drink, his expression unreadable, before his eyes slid away as if he'd just seen a piece of trash on the ground. It had nothing to do with him. Sophia didn't miss the exchange. Her eyes, wide and innocent, darted between the two of us. "Brother, why are you staring at Matthew like that?" The air grew thick and suffocating, each second stretching into an eternity. Just as the silence was about to snap, A hand reached out and plucked the passion fruit juice from my grasp. It was Cooper, one of Matthew's teammates, the notorious heartthrob of the computer science department. Without a word, he twisted the cap off and took a long, thirsty gulp. I asked him to get it for me, Cooper said, his voice a lazy drawl. He shot a mocking, knowing look at Matthew before turning to walk away, not sparing me, the stunned and silent accomplice in his lie, a second glance. Sophia let out a visible sigh of relief, but the smile she pasted back on her face was strained. "Hey, Matthew," she said, her tone suddenly bright and sharp. "Your new brother-in-law is a bit different from the other boys, you know?" Matthew raised an eyebrow, his attention finally back on her. "What do you mean?" "My brother," she declared, her voice ringing with a false cheerfulness that set my teeth on edge. "He's gay. Do you know what that implies?" She paused for dramatic effect, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "It means he might just try to steal you away from me." My hand, hanging uselessly at my side, clenched into a fist, my nails digging into my palm. I stared at her, my mind reeling. But before I could react, she burst into a cascade of merry laughter. "Just kidding. My brother would never fight me for my boyfriend." Through it all, Matthew never once looked at me. He just offered Sophia a casual, unconcerned smile. "I'm straight," he stated, his voice flat and final. That assumption could never be true. The humid air of the gym suddenly felt impossibly dense, crushing the air from my lungs. I found my voice, a weak, strained thing. "Sophia, that's not a funny joke." She smiled, a sweet, vacant smile that didn't reach her eyes, and said nothing at all. That night, the silence in our dorm room was a living entity, heavy and oppressive. Matthew didn't return until after 9. It was a two-person suite, but for weeks, it had felt like my own private prison. When he finally walked in, he didn't bother with pleasantries. He leaned against the doorframe, a silhouette against the hallway light, and delivered the verdict I had been dreading. "I think we should end this." I wasn't surprised. After the spectacle at the basketball court, it was inevitable. I simply nodded, the movement feeling detached, as if my head belonged to someone else. "Okay." My calm acceptance seemed to throw him off. He was quiet for a moment, studying me in the dim light. "Roman," he said, his voice soft but firm, "I have 2 conditions." "Go on," I replied, my own voice unervingly steady. "First, I don't want Sophia to ever find out about us. The truth is, I was never really into you. I'm not gay. This was just a diversion, a game." He paused, his lips pressing into a thin line. "Second, once we're done, we're done. You can't bother me. You can't try to contact me. Roman, I've never felt this way about anyone before. Don't stand in my way. Don't be an obstacle." I knew exactly what he was referring to, the foundation of his second condition. It was rooted in a night early in our whatever it was. He had come back late, pinning me against the bed in the dark, his kisses urgent and hungry. But as he moved, the dim light from the window caught something on his collar, a smear of crimson lipstick. "Wait," I'd whispered, turning my head away, my ears burning with a mixture of passion and sudden, sickening dread. "What?" he'd mumbled, annoyed, chasing my lips. My voice was barely a whisper. "What's that on your collar?" He glanced down, his expression unconcerned. "Oh, that," he said, his mouth returning to mine, his explanation muffled against my skin. "I was at a club. Someone must have brushed up against me. I didn't even see it. The knot of anxiety in my stomach loosened slightly. I wanted to believe him. I needed to. I tilted my chin up, kissing him back with a renewed fervor. Then, "Please be more careful next time," I said softly. "Keep your distance from other people. I don't want anyone else's lipstick on you." The kissing stopped. Matthew pushed himself up, his weight leaving me. He loomed over me, his face cast in shadows, his expression unreadable but chilling. "Roman," he said, his voice devoid of any warmth, "you're crossing a line." Under the pale moonlight, his features seemed sharper, more severe. A coldness began to creep into my limbs. "Aren't we in a relationship?" I asked, my voice trembling. How is asking for fidelity crossing a line? He moved away and lit a cigarette, the flare of the lighter illuminating a smirk on his face. "You're the one who insists on calling it a relationship," he said, smoke curling from his lips. "Fine. If that's what you want to call it, fine. But I don't like being controlled. I know what I'm doing." The smoke created a veil between us, emphasizing the vast, unbridgeable distance he always maintained. "And one more thing. I don't want anyone to know about us. Can you handle that?" He looked at me then, a glint of disdain in his eyes. "It doesn't really matter to me if we have a label or not." I remember the crushing weight of those words. He was the first person I had ever loved so deeply, and the thought of losing him was a physical agony. So I swallowed my pride, my hurt, my dignity. I pushed back the tears that burned my eyes, got up from the bed, and wrapped my arms around his waist from behind. My voice was a dry, rasping thing when I finally spoke. "Okay, Matthew, I like you." He'd given a soft, satisfied hum, turning slightly to nibble playfully at my earlobe. I know he'd whispered. It was strange, but from that day forward, even as I clung to him, a part of me began preparing for the end. I started building walls around my heart, letting my love for him leak out, drop by painful drop. Now, back in the present, his words echoed in the silent room. "Don't be an obstacle." I pulled myself from the memory, my expression still placid. "Okay, Matthew, let's part on good terms. I won't bother you anymore." He just stared at me, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Then his expression hardened again, his voice colder than before. "Roman, I hope you mean that." He turned to leave. "I'm not staying here tonight." "Matthew," I called out, my voice sharp. He paused at the door, a faint, impatient sigh escaping him. "What now?" My tone was serious, stripped of all emotion except for a grim resolve. "Sophia has never been in a relationship before. Don't hurt her. Once you're with her, stop playing around. Stop flirting with everyone. It will destroy her." I didn't have to finish the thought. I didn't have to say that I knew exactly how that pain felt. A soul-crushing agony that left you feeling half-dead. A few seconds of tense silence passed before he slowly turned back to face me. A cruel, humorless smile twisted his lips. "What are you implying, Roman? That I was cheating on you while we were together?" I turned my head away, a profound exhaustion settling deep in my bones. I was too tired for this, too tired to fight, too tired to care. "Just go," I said wearily. The next thing I knew, there was a rush of movement, and he was on me. He grabbed my wrist, his grip like iron, and slammed me back against the door. A pained grunt escaped my lips. At 6'3", he towered over me, and even as he leaned in, the sheer force of his presence was overwhelming. He slammed his free hand against the door panel next to my head, the loud bang making my ears ring. The air crackled with a hostility so palpable it was almost visible. "Listen to me," he snarled, his face inches from mine. "And listen closely, because I'm only saying this once. Apart from you, I haven't kissed anyone, and I haven't slept with anyone." His words, which should have sounded like a declaration of fidelity, a twisted sort of preference, did nothing to stir my already numb heart. All I could think about was the way he'd looked at Sophia on the court, the way his entire being had softened for her. And I couldn't help but laugh a bitter, silent laugh. It turned out Matthew was capable of love after all. I had always assumed he would be the same with everyone. Proud, impatient, unwilling to bend. But for my sister, he had transformed into someone else entirely. For Sophia, the proud son of heaven was willing to kneel. The call came a few weeks later. "Brother, can you come get me?" Sophia's voice was thick with tears, punctuated by hiccuping sobs. I was in the library, but I shot up from my chair. Books forgotten. "Sophia? What's wrong? Where are you?" I had a fight with Matthew," she stammered. "I fell and scraped my knee. I can't walk. And he just left me here. Can you come to the hill behind the school? I'm on my way. Don't cry. I'll be there in a minute," I promised, my heart pounding with concern as I trotted out of the building. It was a half-mile run, and halfway there, the gloomy sky finally broke, a light drizzle beginning to fall. Turning back for an umbrella would waste precious time, so I just ran faster, the cool drops plastering my hair to my forehead. When I arrived at the designated spot, panting and soaked, she was nowhere to be seen. I pulled out my phone, my fingers slipping on the wet screen. "Sophia, I'm here. Where are you?" Just then, a loud clap of thunder echoed overhead, and the drizzle erupted into a torrential downpour. "Oh, brother." Her voice sounded surprised and oddly cheerful. "Sorry, I forgot to tell you. Matthew came back and is carrying me down." There was an undeniable excitement in her tone. "And guess what? He didn't leave me at all. He just went to buy an umbrella for me." I scrambled for the meager shelter of a nearby pavilion, but the wind whipped the rain sideways, drenching me from every angle. I could hear the sound of footsteps through the phone. "Brother, you didn't bring an umbrella?" Sophia asked. I clutched the dripping phone, a single soft my only response. Through the static, I heard their conversation clearly. "Matthew, my brother doesn't have an umbrella. He must be stuck on the mountain. Can you just drop me at the classroom building? You should go back and get him." A soft, indulgent sigh from Matthew. "Sweetheart, I'd do anything you ask, you know that. But that cut on your knee needs to be disinfected right away. I really can't listen to you this time. We have to go straight to the school infirmary." Sophia let out a coquettish little whine. "Oh, but what about my brother?" And then came Matthew's voice, as cold and familiar as a winter frost. "He's a man. A little rain won't kill him. He's not that fragile. He can run back himself." A chill that had nothing to do with the rain spread through me, freezing me to the spot. My limbs felt like they were made of lead. So this was a summer storm. I had never quite understood its capacity for bone-deep coldness until now. Before Sophia could protest, I found my own voice. "It's fine. I'm close to the dorms. I can run. You go get your knee looked at. Send me a picture after they clean it up so I know you're okay." I hung up and plunged back into the deluge. It took me just over 3 minutes to sprint back to my dorm. If I hadn't waited for that phone call, I would have been in the rain for a minute less. I made a promise to myself then, standing shivering in the hallway. Never again. Never again would I wait or waste a single second on people or things that were not worthy of it. After a long, scalding shower, I walked out into my room to a surprising sight. Matthew was there, sitting in my desk chair, engrossed in a game on his phone. It was the first time he'd been back since he started dating Sophia. I'd heard he'd rented them a 2-bedroom apartment off campus. On my desk sat a steaming mug. He looked up as I entered. "Drink it," he said, his eyes already returning to his screen. "Sophia made me come back and bring you some cold medicine." I nodded mutely. "Thanks." I sat down and sipped the warm, sweet liquid. After he finished his game, he stood up to leave. As he passed me, he tossed a final comment over his shoulder. "Try not to cause so much trouble for everyone." This time, I didn't even bother to respond. In the weeks that followed, I did my best to make myself invisible. I avoided the paths they might take, the places they might eat. But Sophia suddenly became incredibly clingy, insisting I join them for meals, dragging me along like a third wheel. We were at a small restaurant, the three of us. Matthew sat across from me, painstakingly peeling shrimp and placing them one by one into Sophia's bowl. She propped her chin on her hands, watching him with a lovesick expression, before letting out a dramatic sigh. "Matthew, why are you so good to everyone?" Matthew scoffed softly. "Don't be ridiculous. Who else do I treat this well besides you?" "Your brother," she said, her eyes flicking to me. Matthew's hands stilled. I set my own chopsticks down. "Sophia, if my memory serves me correctly, I haven't had any contact with either of you recently." "Ooh," she cooed, biting the end of her chopstick. "But last time, when you were sick, I asked him to bring you medicine, and he went immediately." Her lips curved into a bright, innocent smile. "See? He's really nice to you." "So, Matthew," she continued, wrapping her arm around his and resting her head on his shoulder, "why don't you be a good person all the way and introduce a boyfriend to my brother? You're so handsome, you must know lots of other handsome guys." I took a slow, deep breath, trying to loosen the constricting band around my chest. "I don't need one, Sophia." My voice was flat, devoid of emotion. "You've never shown the slightest interest in my life before." This sudden, inexplicable concern. "Frankly, it's creepy." Sophia's face fell. In an instant, her eyes welled up with tears. "No, brother, it's not like that." Matthew slammed his chopsticks down on the table. He expressionlessly grabbed a napkin to dab at Sophia's crocodile tears, but his venomous words were aimed directly at me. "Don't be so ungrateful. Your sister is trying to help you. Let's be realistic. For someone like you, a gay man, if you don't find someone while you're young, who's gonna want you when you're old? You should have a little self-awareness." Something inside me snapped. I pushed my chair back and stood up, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. "And what business is that of yours?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. I found the whole situation utterly absurd. Instead of meddling in my life, why don't you focus on your own relationship? Taking care of yourself is a far more productive use of your time than trying to set me up. Do you understand? It was the first time I had ever fought back, ever refused to swallow the poison they fed me. And as the words left my mouth, I felt a heavy, gloomy cloud that had been hovering over me for years finally begin to dissipate. Ever since I came out, I'd been subjected to a constant, subtle form of emotional blackmail. "Roman, your parents are okay with you being gay. Can't you be more understanding of us?" "Roman, we don't have a problem with it, But could you just use the public showers late at night so you don't make anyone uncomfortable? Roman, don't be ungrateful. Who else would hang out with a gay guy like you? What's the big deal about taking one test for me? For years, I had yielded, compromised, and made myself small just to maintain these fragile relationships. I was done. I realized interpersonal dynamics were simple. Either you accept me or you can go to hell. And if that doesn't work, I'll go to hell. I was done being the one to always bend. Even after my outburst, Matthew wasn't finished. He cornered me a few days later as I was leaving the library. Cooper was standing beside him, looking bored. I found someone for you, Matthew said with a smirk. This is my best-looking friend, Cooper. You've met. It's a shame he's straight, but maybe you can be the one to turn him. Before I could refuse, Matthew leaned in close. His voice a low, venomous whisper meant only for me. Roman, your little tantrum the other day. It's because you still have feelings for me, isn't it? You don't want to move on. But you know what? Being pursued so relentlessly by another man. He paused, then threw my own words back in my face. It's quite creepy. He straightened up, his eyes boring into mine, filled with a chilling satisfaction. It was then I understood. This wasn't about helping me. This was revenge. This was punishment for upsetting Sophia. My throat felt like sandpaper. I wanted to scream, to defend myself, but I knew any word I uttered would be met with 100 more vicious ones from him. Cooper, however, seemed oblivious to our silent war. He stepped forward, pulled out his phone, and displayed his QR code. He tilted his chin at me, his expression lazy. You want a relationship or not? If you do, let's add each other. Matthew's head snapped towards him. Cooper, are you insane? You told me you were straight. Cooper's eyelids were heavy, giving him a perpetually tired look. A faint smile touched his lips. You also said you were straight, he countered smoothly. So how come I heard you've kissed a man before? Matthew's face tensed, his eyes darting to me, watching my every move. I could feel the silent battle of wills raging between them. And for some reason, maybe because he had helped me before, maybe because I was just so tired of losing, I didn't want Cooper to lose this one. I took out my own phone and scanned his code. I pursed my lips into the semblance of a smile. Let's talk, I said. Just as I was about to send the friend request, Matthew's hand shot out, covering my screen. His expression was as cold as I'd ever seen it. Think carefully, Roman. This is your only chance to back out. Whatever happens next, you'll have to live with the consequences. I knew what he was implying. He thought Cooper was just like him, another straight man playing a cruel game, and that I was setting myself up for more heartbreak. I ignored his burning gaze and pressed send. Cooper accepted instantly. Matthew took a step back, his calm, arrogant mask slipping back into place. Very well. I'll be watching. Let's see how long this little charade of yours lasts. After he stormed off, the tension finally drained from my shoulders. I turned to Cooper. Thank you, I said earnestly, for acting along with me back there. It really helped. But don't worry, I added quickly, I won't actually bother you. You can delete me now if you want. I assumed we both knew it was a performance. No one could take it seriously. But as I was speaking, I saw Cooper pin my contact to the top of his chat list. Then he added my contact name. It now read, Baby. He lifted his eyelids, his gaze pinning me in place. What's this? We've been together for 10 minutes and you're already trying to dump me? I stammered, caught completely off guard. No, aren't you straight? Cooper's nonchalant expression softened, replaced by a surprising earnestness. "I've never been in a relationship before," he said quietly. "I've never really liked anyone, male or female. My orientation is a blank slate. So why does everyone just assume I'm straight?" I didn't know what to say. He seemed to take my silence as rejection. He let out a self-deprecating sigh and looked down. "Forget it. Just say you don't like me. I won't push it." I watched in stunned silence as he changed his profile picture to a solid black square and his username to a single melancholic character. Then he changed my contact name back to my full name. "Well," he muttered, looking at me with the wounded expression of a tragic hero, "my first love lasted all of 10 minutes. Turns out you can't trust men." He turned to walk away. "Let's just break up." Something compelled me to move. I reached out and grabbed the arm of this dramatic, confusing boy who was even taller than Matthew. "No," I said, feeling an absurd sense of guilt. "I didn't mean it like that." He stopped and stared at me. "So you're not dumping me?" Though I was still completely bewildered, I found myself slowly shaking my head. A reluctant look crossed his face. "Fine. I forgive you." In a flash, his avatar and ID were back to normal. Then he held out his hand to me. I blinked. "What? Aren't we in a relationship?" he asked as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Shouldn't we hold hands?" My mind flashed back to the beginning with Matthew. I had tried to hold his hand once, and he had pulled away with a faint, condescending smile. Two grown men holding hands? It's a little weird, don't you think? It'd be embarrassing if someone saw. The memory stung. I hesitated for a moment before refusing Cooper. "What if people see us?" "Let them look," he interrupted, taking my hand himself. He laced his fingers through mine, his grip firm and warm, and started walking, pulling me along. He didn't even look back as he spoke, his voice filled with a gentle certainty. "Roman, be more confident." His back was broad and straight, and for a moment, the warmth from his hand felt more powerful than the sun overhead. In that instant, I was sure of one thing. My steady, broken heartbeat had just skipped a beat. When Sophia heard I was officially in a relationship, she immediately booked a private room at a fancy restaurant, ordering an entire feast before calling to inform me and Cooper, leaving no room for refusal. The moment she saw Cooper, however, the joyous smile on her face faltered. "Senior Cooper," she said, her tone skeptical, "are you really my brother's boyfriend?" Cooper pulled out a chair for me first before slumping into his own. "What else?" he replied without looking up. "You invite your brother and his boyfriend to dinner. Who did you expect him to bring? His professor?" Sophia's face flushed. I can't believe it. "Matthew, did you really introduce such a handsome guy to my brother? They don't seem to match at all." Matthew let out a short, sharp laugh as he unpacked her cutlery. "How well can a fake couple with no real feelings possibly match?" Sophia leaned forward, her expression a mixture of confusion and disapproval. "Senior, why do you like my brother? Aren't there any pretty girls at our school?" I couldn't help but let out a bitter little laugh at that. Cooper's gaze fixed on her. After a long moment, he lazily turned his head to Matthew. "Matthew, why do you like her? Aren't there any other women in the world?" Sophia's face went pale. "Matthew, why is he talking to me like that?" The irony of her outrage was staggering. Cooper pressed on, his voice laced with sarcasm. "So, you're allowed to talk about your brother like that, but you can't handle anyone saying the same about you?" Matthew had heard enough. He set a plate down with a sharp clatter, a clear. Sophia is a girl, he said, his voice low and threatening. Show some respect. He then raised his eyes, his gaze sweeping over me and Cooper. A faint smirk played on his lips. Besides, she's not wrong. You two are so formal with each other, you look more like strangers than a couple. Cooper took over before I could even open my mouth. Is that so? And what would you know about it? Do you need a detailed report of how many times we've kissed in the last 2 days? Matthew froze for a split second before recovering, a low chuckle rumbling in his chest. You'd like to kiss? His eyes flickered over me, a challenge in their depths. He didn't believe a word of it. I excused myself to the restroom halfway through the meal. When I came out, Matthew was leaning against the opposite wall, a cigarette dangling from his lips. So, did you kiss him? He asked, his eyes dancing with amusement. I ignored him and went to wash my hands. He pushed himself off the wall and approached slowly, the scent of smoke clinging to him. You're lying, Roman. I know you. He cornered me against the sink, grabbing my arm when I tried to move past him. After a real kiss, you wouldn't look like this. He lowered his gaze to my lips, his voice dropping to a husky murmur. They'd be swollen. All day. He leaned in, and in that moment I was done. I was done struggling, done resisting. A cold, reckless calm washed over me. I gave a soft laugh. Do you have another cigarette? Surprise flickered across his face, but he pulled one out. Since when do you smoke? I ignored the question, took the cigarette, and placed it between my lips. I let him light it for me, then took a long, slow drag, holding his gaze. The amusement in his eyes slowly morphed into something darker, more intense. I played with the cigarette for a second. Then, in one swift motion, I turned my wrist and pressed the burning cherry of the cigarette directly onto the back of his arm. He let out a sharp, muffled groan, stumbling back, his arm trembling. I watched his face contort in pain, my own expression cold as stone. Matthew, I said, my voice low and final, stay the hell away from me. Compared to Cooper, you are rotten to the core. I knew I was being extreme, but it wasn't just about my revulsion towards Matthew anymore. I was with Cooper now, and even if it was just a strange, sudden thing, I owed him a clean slate. I owed him a real first love, untainted by the ghosts of my past. When Matthew finally returned to the private room over 10 minutes later, his face was a mask of thunderous rage. When our dinner, fraught with ulterior motives, was finally ending, there was a sudden crash. Sophia had thrown a plate. I looked up to see her face covered in angry red rashes. Her lips were swelling rapidly, and she was gasping, clawing at her throat. Matthew was the first to react, catching her as she slumped over. Sophia, are you having an allergic reaction? He yelled, his usual composure shattered. She couldn't answer. My eyes, along with Matthew's, flew to the fruit platter she had just been eating from. It was filled with slices of mango, and I was the one who had ordered it. Matthew's eyes met mine, and the accusation in them was as sharp as a physical blow. He scooped her up and rushed for the door, pausing only to give me a look so cold, so full of hatred, it made me shiver. By the time Cooper and I reached the hospital, Sophia was already hooked up to an 4-drip. The nurse informed us that she was stable and that Matthew was handling the paperwork. You're her brother, right? She asked me. Keep an eye on the bag. Call me when it's about to run out. I nodded, my attention fixed on the slow drip of the medication. Cooper stood to the side, his gaze on the sleeping Sophia thoughtful. "Your sister," he said suddenly, his voice laced with an unreadable emotion. "She's a pretty bold one." Just as I was about to ask what he meant, I noticed the 4 bag was nearly empty. I leaned over to check the needle in Sophia's hand. As I straightened up to call the nurse, a hand clamped down on my arm, yanking me back. "What else are you trying to do to her?" Matthew's voice was a venomous hiss in my ear. The next second, I was thrown backward with tremendous force, crashing into a metal supply shelf. The sound of clattering instruments echoed through the quiet ward. "Roman." Cooper was by my side instantly, helping me up. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head, dazed. He settled me onto a nearby sofa before turning to face Matthew. His entire demeanor transformed. The lazy, nonchalant boy was gone, replaced by someone radiating pure, cold fury. "Don't look at me like that, Cooper," Matthew sneered. "He brought this on himself. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say ordering the mango platter was an accident. But just now, let him tell you what he was planning to do to his own sister." Cooper silently walked to the door and closed it. His eyes landed on the 4-pole standing in the corner. My heart leaped into my throat. "Cooper, don't," I pleaded. But he didn't seem to hear me. In a flash, he crossed the room, grabbed Matthew by the collar, and slammed him against the wall. With his other hand, he seized the heavy steel 4-pole, raising it high. The door burst open. "What are you doing?" a nurse yelled, appearing just in time. She fearlessly marched between the 2 towering boys, snatching the pole away. "I'll call security. This is a hospital." She glanced at the empty 4-bag, then at us, her expression one of pure disgust. Cooper let out a heavy, shuddering breath, releasing Matthew with a shove. "Roman likes mangoes," he said, his voice tight with suppressed rage. "It's perfectly normal for him to order them. The problem is with your girlfriend, who knows she's allergic and eats them anyway. Either she's an idiot or she did it on purpose. And just now, Roman was checking to see if it was time to change her 4-drip. He finished with a sneer. You and your girlfriend are a real piece of work. I had recovered enough to stand. I walked over and pulled on Cooper's arm, ignoring the complicated, stunned expression on Matthew's face. Let's go. There's no point explaining anything to him. Roman, I thought. Matthew started, raising a hand to stop me. I didn't let him finish. I turned, and with every ounce of pain and betrayal from the past year fueling the motion, I swung my fist, connecting squarely with his jaw. His head snapped to the side. He didn't fight back. He didn't say a word. Do I need your opinion? I spat. Matthew, who the hell do you think you are? The hand hanging by his side curled into a tight fist. He used to do that when he was hurt. But so what? Who cared anymore? I followed Cooper back to his dorm. He lived alone. Take off your shirt, he said, his voice gruff as he rummaged through a first aid kit. I froze, the atmosphere in the room shifting instantly. He must have sensed it too, because when he looked up and our eyes met, his ears turned a bright, furious red. To put medicine on your back, he stammered. The innocent, blushing boy before me was a world away from the furious protector in the hospital. And in the quiet of the late night, I had to admit, the contrast was incredibly appealing. I sat on the edge of his bed, leaning back on my hands. My arm hurts from hitting Matthew, I said, tilting my head slightly. I can't lift it. Will you help me? Cooper lowered his head, fumbling with the supplies. All right, he coughed, his voice hoarse. He knelt in front of me, his hands hovering hesitantly over the buttons of my shirt. "What's wrong?" I whispered. "Should I?" he asked, his face a picture of helpless confusion. I nodded slowly, deliberately. "Be gentle. Don't hurt me." I could practically see the steam rising from his head. He reached out, his fingers trembling slightly as he undid the first button. By the time he reached the third, I saw his Adam's apple bob convulsively. Couldn't resist. I reached up, cupped his face in my hand, and stroked his cheek with my thumb. "Why are you blushing so much?" I murmured. The next second, the world turned upside down. I was flat on my back on his bed, and he was leaning over me, his hands braced on either side of my head, his eyes dark and intense. "Are you doing this on purpose?" he growled. Lying on his bed, surrounded by his scent, I felt a lazy smile spread across my face. I didn't answer, but as he leaned down, his lips just inches from mine, I put my smile away. I turned my head to the side, his kiss landing on my cheek instead. "Wait," I said, pushing gently at his shoulder. "There's something I have to tell you first. Something I've never told anyone." And just as a new chapter was about to begin, I stopped everything with a secret I had kept buried deep inside. What do you think Roman is about to confess? And do you believe Cooper's feelings are genuine? Or is he just trying to protect a friend? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you're hooked on this story and need to know what happens next, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more.